Okay, what's up, everybody? My name's Data. I'm a Pokemon player. I've been making other videos related to Pokemon trade card games on other channels for about a year, and this is my very first video on YouTube. So, if you know me from other platforms, or you know me personally as a Pokemon player, or if you just like my video, the content of the video, please just subscribe down below. It'll be greatly appreciated. Um, I'll start off my channel, the very first video talking about the new format because, as we all know, Journey Together was released Friday, um, like this Friday, which is March 28th, right? And along with that, rotation happens, so we lose a whole bunch of old decks. We basically lose every single card from Sword and Shield meta. So we lose all the Vs, all the V stars. We lose a whole bunch of other very playable cards. I'm gonna talk about some of them as I go through this tier list. But just name a few of them. We're losing Regidrago, we're losing Arceus, we're losing Lugia, which are all very powerful cards. They used to dominate the entire meta. So now moving into Journey Together meta, which is the first meta where um, after regulation rotates. We'll start off with old deck. We're starting off with Ancient Box. Ancient Box was a deck that was introduced early 2024, which was the very first set. I think it's a Temple Force. Yes, Temple Forces. And ever since that, I never think Ancient Box is super relevant or like super good, competitively speaking. There's always gonna be people playing it. There's always gonna be people making top 16, top 20, 32, even top 8 with this deck. But the problem with deck is that it's very slow because you need to build up your discard pile with a whole bunch of ancient cards. And another problem with this card is that it doesn't have a draw engine. Uh, like before the rotation, people uses Radiant Greninja as a little bit of draw, and we can still use Presentability, of course, but losing of Radiant Greninja kind of hurts this deck. Also, losing Pokestar makes this deck go even slower. So I'm gonna put this deck in. I'm gonna put it in a C tier. Also, like one of the reasons Ancient Box is super good, well, like not super good, but like people consider it good just because it's mainly a dark type, so it counters Gardevoir. But in this meta, Gardevoir is not that strong as it used to be, so that's why it's kind of dropped. Right. Next, Sableye. Sableye. Mm, the Sableye is kind of like it's a half was like a semi turbo deck. It likes to go very fast. Like the idea of Sableye is to build up a discard pile with a whole bunch of energy as quick as possible, and then you're just taking one shots for everything, right? But the problem is like for a turbo deck, it's not fast enough. So comparing that with other turbo decks like Raging Bolt, for example, I don't think Solar would run over Raging Bolt. I think it's slower, and also like it has the same problem, similar problem with Ancient Box, is how you build up your discard pile so quickly. So I'm gonna put it on the C tier. I think it's probably better than Ancient Box because Ancient Box historically has a huge problem of dealing with 300 HP Pokemons. But still Legend we can do it, right? Archaludon. We have a lot of Archaludon decks. I'm gonna go through them one by one. Like first is the traditional Archaludon. Um, it's basically Archaludon's only and main attacker. So just keep chaining Archaludons and using Professor Turo, using Screw Up Cyclone as your ace spec, just to heal your Archaludons. I think it's okay. I don't think this deck is too bad, but one of the problems for this deck is always how do you how to hit the big number, right? Because the hit point for the damage output for this deck is maximum 220, I think. Yeah. It's very consistent. Like a Caledon for me is like a metal type Charizard. It's just like it basically charges itself up, right? Uh, and it's pretty tanky, 300 HP after you using the Metal Defender attack. I think the attack name is Metal Defender, right? Yeah. After you use your attack, you're basically 300 HP stage one with no weakness because the attack takes away your weakness next turn. Yeah, I think it's okay. I don't think it's too bad, but I also don't think it's ever too good. I'll put it in B tier as for now. Yeah. Um, the other one is the Poison Arcana. It is recently popping up build from I think some of the Japanese players and some of the players from other places of the world also started to test out this Poison Arcana. It's basically you put in a Poison engine, which is the same engine you use for the Craft Rapigal stack before rotation. You just put in the Petulant and the Poison Petulant, not the one that switch Dark Pokemon. It's the ability says once it's in the active, but during Pokemon checkup, it puts 5 more damage counters. A poison damage modifier Petulant. And you put the Boot Bonnet and Ancient Booster Capsule, so you just and also you use the Binding Mochi. So basically you're doing 260 with the Binding Mochi plus the poison damage. And you can increase your poison damage by the there's a card I forgot the name, but it's whatever something jungle. It's a jungle stadium card. It's a stadium card. The name is something jungle. I forgot. I'm not familiar with that card, but I think it's coming out either in Temple Force or Twilight Masquerade. I forgot. Twilight Mask. I think so. Yeah. I think it's Twilight Masquerade. I remember the card, but yeah, it basically says during Pokemon checkup to put 2 more damage counter on both Pokemon, on non-dark Pokemon, but it's basically both. So you just put in a poison engine to increase the damage output. One of the problem for this build comparing to the traditional Caledon build is it has more pieces, so like sometimes you break, sometimes you just don't get all the pieces you need. It's harder to build up, but once it's working, it's more powerful than the traditional build. And also you put in a Badoo to give yourself some time to set up, right? Also, when your Caledon gets knocked out by your opponents, if they're still poison, you can just put up a Petulant to poison 60 damage, right? It's always a choice. It's just if you have some experience playing Terrapagos Cloth deck, you know how the poison engine goes, right? So I think it's more powerful. I'll put it in A tier. I think it solves part of the problem for the traditional Caledon build, which is the damage output. The maximum damage for this one is I think it's 290, so which is pretty relevant number. Next, we have Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao D tier. I don't think it's ever good anymore. You lose Irida. Losing Irida means it'll be harder for you to get the best caliber out. Also, you lose Pokestop, which is one of the main way for Chien-Pao to find cards, to draw cards. Also, you're losing B-Barrel, which is another draw engine for Chien-Pao. So, yeah, Chien-Pao's not good right now. Also, the existence of Badoo makes this deck even slower. Chien-Pao is also a super quick deck, but you're like comparing to Silverledge, comparing to Goldingo, to Raging Bolt, you most of the time you are just outpaced by other fast turbo decks, right? So I don't think Chien-Pao is good. Next is Conqueror. This is another somehow when Cloth didn't rotate, but on the basis of DTE like double turbo energy rotates, Cloth is not relevant anymore. So it's just another substitute poison deck for the cloth deck. But I don't think this one is as good as the Caladon. The Conqueror is basically it says, if you're poisoned, you can attack for free. I think that's attack for free for 250 damage. But the problem is you need to build up a Conqueror, which is a stage 2 Pokemon. Also, the basic of the Conqueror line, I forgot the name, but the basic Pokemon of this line is 80 HP. Means you cannot use Body Popping for it. So you have to use Nest Ball, or you need to use Artisan, which makes it harder to build up. But I think it's still better than Chien-Pao, I would say, but that's it. Flareon. Among all the EV EXs from the Prismatic Evolution, Flareon ended up being the most playable EV among all 8 of them, right? I mean, I know people all like Umbreon EX is always people's favorite, and it's also a very crazy card for the SIR. The SIR for Umbreon is always very crazy, but ended up Flareon being the most playable one. Its first attack for Fire Colorless does 130 and you charge up 2 energy to any of the Pokemon, I think, right? And your second attack, Fire, Water, Electric to 280. Next turn, I think this Pokemon cannot attack, or this Pokemon cannot use this attack. Let me just quickly make sure. Yeah, I think it's yeah. Let me just quickly make sure. I think the second attack. Yeah, this Pokemon cannot attack. That's 280 damage. It's okay. Flareon's pretty good, I think. The idea is if you can get a first Flareon going, like you basically charge up all of your other Flareons. So you only need one attack, one of your first attack, to start the charging up line, and then you can keep using your second attack when Flareon gets knocked out, right? It is especially good against Raging Bolt. While stack testing Raging Bolt post rotation, I had some of the Flareon build. I think I get cooked by this deck because the Flareon, the first attack is 130, but Teal Maskical Gripon is weak to fire, so it does 260. Means even if you have a Bravery Charm on your Teal Mask, you're still one-shotted by Flareon. And so basically what Flareon deck needs to do is to boss up one of your Teal Mask for the first hit, and then it just keep using a second attack to knock out your Raging Bolt. And for any time like it cannot pull off a second attack, they can just use the first attack to boss up another Teal Mask. So this deck is especially good against Raging Bolt, but against other decks like, for example, Charizard or Dragapult, this deck will have a problem for not taking one shot, but also like Flareon's 270 HP means you can take a hit from the Dragapult, so it's kind of better. Also, like again with Goldingo, right? The fire type means you hit weakness for Goldingo. So just put it the low A tier. I think it has a lot of potential. Yeah, I don't think you need any other EVs. Some people say you could put in a Jolteon line, but yeah, I think Flareon itself, like if you just build a deck with EV, EVEX, and Flareon, you're pretty good and you're good to go. You don't need any other. Yeah, you don't need any other EVs, but you probably would need one or two second attacker to go through the melodic wall deck. But other than that, yeah. Espasral. Espasral is always the deck that exists in the format. It's basically this deck could be quite annoying when because Espasral means your opponent needs to use one more colorless energy to attack. So every attack from the opponent's active Pokemon costs one colorless more, which could be huge for decks that lack of energy acceleration. Um, yeah, for example, like it could be really hard for a Caladon because now you need to attack from hand twice for an Caladon to charge itself up, right? It could also be annoying for Dragapult, for Raging Bolt, right? Because they don't have that much of energy acceleration. Yeah, but for other decks that has enough energy acceleration, this card is not that good, right? Also, it's super good against big basic decks because you can always play Pokemon League Headquarter to add another colorless energy cost to the basic Pokemon, right? So just put it at high D tier. That's it, right? Feraligatr. Feraligatr was the winner deck of a 5,000 people Champions League over in Japan for the Journey Together format. Um, I tested out this deck. I did a lot of deck testing. One of the biggest problem for this deck is it it's being too slow. Like you need a lot of uh evolution to make a lot of evolution before you can make relevant damage. But once it gets set up, it's very devastating. It's very good of a deck once you can just build up entire board. Because the idea is to use the Relicanth, which allows you to use attacks from pre-evolution. So like for Feraligatr, you can use its basic and stage 1's attack, and the basic of Feraligatr is an attack that which is a retreat lock attack, means your opponents cannot retreat next turn. This could win you some games when your opponent run out of like switch resources. And the second attack is a hit and run attack. So you could just hit and run and put up a Mimikyu or some other Pokemon, right? Also, like the Feraligatr's ability lets you put 5 damage counter on yourself and you do 120 more damage, which boosts up the damage outputs, like for other attacks. Right? For example, like now your hit to run attack I think does 150, right? Which is relevant number comparing to 30 damage. So the problem for Feraligatr is how do you buy yourself time to set up and how to build up the board as quickly as possible. That would be the challenge for Feraligatr players. But it could be annoying and could be devastating once Feraligatr gets set up. So I'm gonna put it in A tier. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Gholdengo. Now, mainly two Gholdengo decks. One is just Gholdengo decks, where like some people play the non-spell engine in it, which I think is reasonable and it's working pretty well. The other one is the Gholdengo with Dragon Ball. I'll start with the traditional Gholdengo. Mm, Gholdengo, like the good part of Gholdengo is you have a lot of draw, like draw a whole bunch of cards. You can set up like 3 or 4 Gholdengo on your board, and if you play like basically Gholdengo right now just play Energy Surge Pro, right? So you can do enormous amount of damage in early games, and with all the energy retrieval cards, you can just keep chaining your energy and just keep doing a lot of energies. Or keep doing keep just discarding a lot of energy, do a whole bunch of damage. So in theory, like you can take 2-2 knockouts and just finish the game. But one of the problem is Gholdengo will face difficulties when you are behind. It doesn't have a comeback ability. Also, like Gholdengo would not be that good if you're facing up a one pricer decks. So, for example, like Slowking or what are other one pricer decks? Gardevoir, right? Say Gardevoir. So all of these one pricers will make a price trade very hard because they're trading 1 for 2. Also, Goldingo is not very tanky as a two-fighter Pokemon, as 260 HP, right? Also Badoo is a problem for Goldingo, so right now I think some of the solution for Goldingo players is to play the Ionos Stadium. I think it's called Levencia. It's basically the Ionos Stadium, which lets you recycle 2 lightning energy from your discard pile, which is a way to solve the Badoo lock. But overall, Goldingo is okay. It's pretty good. I'll put it in A tier. I think it's better than Flareon. Probably, yeah. For the Goldingo Dragapult, I know it's the second place of the 5,000 people Champions League, uh, but I don't like it. I don't see any synergy between these two cards. I mean, playing Goldingo with Dragapult, I think you're just playing a worse version of Goldingo and a worse version of Dragapult at the same time. It's just a worse version of both. I think the only good part of it is just it doesn't get blocked by the wall deck. It just goes through Melodics. Yeah, it just goes through Melodics, goes through the Cornerstone. Yeah, just I think that's the only advantage of this card. But in terms of consistency, in terms of deck power, you're playing a worse version of both. So I'll play it in B tier. Yeah, because like you lose the you have to play a whole bunch of random energy and energy search pro, which is not the ideal aspect for Dragapult decks, right? Yeah, in terms of Goldingo deck, yeah, you like the entire Dragapult line take up a lot of deck space, right? So yeah, I think it's just the worst version of both decks. Just talk about Dragapult. We have 2 other Dragapult decks we need to talk about. First one is the Dragozard. Dragapult. Yeah. Um, this deck's another deck that if everything goes well, if like you have the best starting hand forever, like if you can do turn 2, rare candy Charizard, rare candy Dragapult, you're unstoppable basically. But the problem is, in reality, like it's not gonna happen. We know it's not gonna happen. We know you're gonna break. We know you're gonna, yeah. We know things is not gonna work that way. So I'll just play C tier. I think I'll just put it in low C tier. Yeah, this is a deck that you just need too many things for this deck to work. You need the turn 1 double body popping, turn 2 rare candy Charizard, rare candy Dragon Ball, and then you're good to go. But it's not happening. So right. So I'll just put it down in C tier. I would not consider playing this. Like if you consider playing this deck, I recommend you either play a Charizard deck, a real Charizard deck, or you just play a real Dragon Ball deck. Don't play both in one deck. It's just you're asking too much. You're asking too much, basically. Also the Dragon Ball Dusknoir. Like it is no doubts one of the BDIF, one of the most terrifying, most powerful, like most dominant card ever. Like most, it's a deck you have to respect. It's a deck you have to beat. So like, if someone comes to me and they say the deck just automatically loses to Dragapult, this deck is not gonna win. Like you are not gonna win a lot of games if you cannot deal with Dragapult. It's just too good. Like you have your Dracloak as a draw engine. You have Badoo to slow your opponent down, and when you set up your Dragapult, you can just Dusknoir Dragapult, use the spread damage to just wipe out the entire board. It's just crazy. It's the BDIF. Like if you take a look at the meta right now, a lot of the decks are just built to beat Dragapult. Like it has become a criteria for the powerhouse of a deck. Like if you can reliably beat Dragapult, then your deck could move up on the tier list. if your deck is weak to Dragapult, it will drop down the tier list. So it is a deck that defines the entire meta. I would say it's a BDIF. Some people may argue like Terra Box, but I would say Dragapult in terms of deck power is like is un it's like unstoppable. I would say this deck is just unstoppable in terms of deck power. It can do too many things. It's just too good. Like Terra Box, yes, it beats Dragapult in a lot of cases, and they can deal with a lot of other meta decks, but like in terms of deck power, it's not as strong as Dragapult does, right? Without a doubt, this is a BDIF. I would not consider any other decks. So you need to have an answer to Dragapult. So that's what I'm telling that's what I'm saying to every one of you that's watching this video. When you're building a deck and joining it together, and when you're building your deck in the next meta, which is the Team Rocket's Destiny Rivals. If you're building a deck in the next meta, you also need to consider how to beat Dragapult. I would say for the entire year of 2025, you need to answer to Dragapult. This is how good it is. I couldn't see it drop. I could see it maybe if when Pokemon Company introduce other decks that are powerful, may drop down to A tier, but it would never be lower than that for the entire year. I'm just saying that. Also, talk about Terra Box. Terra Box is a very meta-specific deck because it's like it mainly uses Teomatic Groupon to answer to all the decks that are weak to grass, namely Charizard, right? That's the biggest one you're countering with Teomatic Groupon. Also the Mammoth one, which we're gonna cover in a short amount of time. Also, you're using you're using Wellspring or Groupon to do bench snipe because this is a meta where there's no mana fee. There's very little bench protections. Right, you can use the Rapscar, but not many deck plays it. So Teomass could be terrifying for a lot of decks that plays a lot of low HP basics. Lily's Clefairy EX is basically an answer to Dragapult. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, right? Also, Pikachu. Pikachu just basically deal with everything else. So for if you're facing up a deck that you cannot deal with the three other attackers I'm saying, you can just nuke them with Pikachu. That's answer to everything else. Some of them also play Terrapagos as an answer to big basic decks. You can play that. You can choose not to play that. It's your own choice. Yeah. So that's it. That's Terra Box. It's very meta specific, and it's good because it counters mainly. Like I think it counters nearly every single deck in the meta except maybe Melodics. So you need to be really familiar with the meta to be good at this deck. You need to starting from turn one, knowing that what strategy you're going to into price map. And for example, like if you know your opponent is playing a Dragapult deck because they start with 3P, right? Then you know you need your Lily's Clefairy, right? You probably need to Wellspring in your early games. You need to close out this game with Lily's Clefairy. If you're facing up, say, a Caledon deck, then you don't want to play Lily's Clefairy. You don't want to play your Wellspring. You want to keep using Pikachu, right? So you need to. It's kind of like a countering meta deck. So it's a lot of skills built into it. It requires a lot of practice. You need to know, for example, we are doing bench sniping. You need to know which Pokemon on the bench to snipe. Which is the biggest threat. So very strong deck. I think it's the second best deck after Dragapult. Yeah. If you're playing Terra Box, just pray that you don't face a Melodic deck, and then you're good to go. Next, Gardevoir. Gardevoir loses so many stuff in rotation. Losing the Refinement Courier is too much for this deck. because right now you just don't have a good draw engine built into the deck. So God of War came back to the rare candy view because before rotation, people are playing the slow build of God of War, right? They are just using Team Evo, evolving to Corellia, and Corellia evolving to God of War EX. And post rotation, you have to accelerate the deck. You have to using rare candy because there's no good stage one for God of War to play anymore. One of the good part is it just uh, it just farms Dragapult when you get set up because Lily's Clefairy means Dragapult, like all the dragons are weak to Psychic, right? So any of your attacker just easily one shots Dragapult. Um, Problem is how you set up. That's the main problem for this deck. Also, like losing Refinement Corellia means now you need to find other ways to put all of your psychic energy into discard 5. So basically, if you're still playing God of War, you need to answer two questions. First is how do you build up your God of War as quick as possible? Second is how to put energy in discard 5. If you can answer that two questions, God of War survives rotation. You can still play it. If you think you don't have a good answer to these questions, yeah, you should drop God of War. I'll put it in low B tier. I think it's still okay. I think this deck is still okay to play. Simply because it farms Dragapult is set up, but yeah, it's definitely weaker than it's definitely the weakest time for God of War EX since it's introduced. Yeah. Another also we have moving over two other big stage 2 decks, Hydreigon and Hydrapult. These two decks are also those kind of stage 2 decks. It's like if you have enough time to build it up, if you can put enough energy into play, Hydrapult can do a whole bunch of damage. If you can build up that Obsidian attack, Hydreigon could like wipe the entire board with like 2 hits. But the problem is, how do you buy yourself time? That's the biggest question these two decks need to answer. So I'll just put them down in D tier because I think they're too slow of a deck. Okay. Moving on. Ionos Sparks. Like, Ionos Battlebolt has a super good ability. It in the stage 1 Pokemon, it makes you accelerate lightning energy to your Ionos Pokemon as much as you want in one turn. The biggest problem for this deck is that it doesn't have a good attacker. It doesn't even have a. It's not just the attacker is not good. I think the attacker are bad. Like Ionos Battlebolt itself, 4 energy doing 230 damage, and on your next turn you cannot attack. I mean, this is a bad attack. Like 4 energy doing 230, next turn you cannot attack. For the stage 1 Pokemon. I mean, it's theoretically okay, but the damage output is not good enough, and the energy cost is very high. Yes, I know, like, the Ionos Battlebolt could activate as much energy as possible, but the problem is also, like, you need to find those energy in the first place. And then accelerate, right? Because Ionos Battlebolt activate from your hand, not from your deck. So you first need to find a lot of energies and just charge up your Ionos Battlebolt, and you only hit for 230 damage. Also, you need more energy for the Ionos Kilowattrel to draw cards, right? So, yeah. The other one is there's another basic Pokemon. Let me see what the name of it. I forgot the name. Like it basically it's a basic for Electrode. What's the name of it? I forgot. It's a basic Pokemon for Electrode, and it basically says It does 20 damage for each energy attack, or 20 base damage plus 20 for each lightning energy attached to all of our Ionos Pokemon. It's a one fighter. It's a basic Pokemon. It, in theory, could do limitless damage. It could do as much damage as you want it to do. But the problem is it needs at least 10 damage. At least 10 energy to do relevant damage. Like if you charge up 10 energy to all of your Arnold's Pokemon, that's 220. Which only knocks out like basic EXs. For it to knock out the Charizard, a Dragon Ball needs like 15 energy. Like someone tell me how do you find 15 energy in one turn? I couldn't see you doing it at all. So this is a problem for this deck. It has everything it needs. It has every of these supporting line for a good deck. And it has everything but a good attacker. And based on the information we have right now, I don't think they're gonna print more Ionos Pokemon means that this deck will become a D tier deck in this matter and in any future matters. Just needs one good attacker for this deck to work, but it just don't happen. Moving on, N-Sparx. N-Stack, I did some deck testing this morning. Like I just test this out. N-Stack, the good part of it is similar to Teal Mask. Similar to the Terra Box, to the Wellspring Gripple. In the meta where there's no bench protection, like bench sniping with the Instaminaton, turn 2 could be super devastating for a lot of decks, especially stage 2 decks. And also the first attack for Reshiram, which is I think it's Power Outage. I think that's the name of the attack. I'm not quite sure the name, but like it's basically does 20 damage for each damage counter on you. So like if your Zoroark takes a hit, you just do 2 times the damage to your opponent. It's a revenge attack. Like it lets you one shot a lot of decks that cannot one hit KO Zoroark, namely Dragon Ball, right? But one of the problems is you need like the Dominating cannot be put into play with Body Pumping because the basic is 80 HP. So you need to build up enough Zoroark, and also you need to try to build up a Dominating. So you need a lot of setup on your turn 1. That's one of the problem. Second is at the early stage, before you can load up, before you can using the Dominating attack, or like before you can use the revenge attack from the Reshiram, this deck lacks big damage. So like I think the maximum number you do is 170 from the Reshiram's attack. So it will have problems dealing with decks that could one shot and Zoroark, right? Also like sometimes I find like I don't have enough bench space because need a lot of other Ends Pokemon on your bench for Zoroark to copy. So I'll play it, put it in the high B tier. I think that's where this deck falls into, right? I think it's relevant deck, but I don't think it's too good. I think it's mediocre. It's mediocre. Slowking. Slowking is basically the new Regidrago, right? But it's way harder to pull off a Slowking deck than it is to build up a Regidrago because you need to have the stadium like Night Academy in play, and just every time you just need to have the attack in your hand, and Night Academy put it back on the top of the deck, then discard it. And for the next time, if you want to use it again, you need to use Night Stretcher to recycle that Pokemon, right? So not like Witch Drago. Witch Drago, like once you discard everything in the discard pile, the only thing you care about is how to charge up your Dragos. But for Slowking, you need a lot of other pieces. You need the stadium. You need to find ways to put your attacker in hands. You need to charge up the Slowkings. Yeah. So I don't think it's as good as Regidrago. Um, one of the main reasons people play this deck is that it's probably the only deck that could keep using or keep training the attack for what's it Cure. Yeah, it is the only deck that could abuse the Curum's attack. And also we know as I told you, as I said many times, this is a meta without bench protection. So being able to abuse Qum's attack could be devastating in early stages. But once your opponent gets set up, I think this deck will have problems, right? Of course, like you can copy the Regigigas attack to knock out like terror Pokemons. Yeah, the problem is always how do you find all those pieces every time. So I'll put it in low B tier. I think still the B tier deck is still okay. I was wrong. Thought I was wrong. Yeah, I'll put it in high B tier. There's not that many decks that would suffer from ability lock. For example, like Dragapult. Like Dragapult doesn't care about the ability lock because like and Dragapult, the Dracloak doesn't get locked out by Iron Storm, and Dragapult doesn't have ability. So yeah, the Iron Storm, like for this deck to shine for this deck to success like the 2024 World Championship, it needs the meta to be a meta where most of the competitive deck needs to use the ability for Rubox Pokemon, which is not this meta. So Melodics. Melodics is basically it's like a wall deck. So like just playing Melodics, Ferragraph EX, uh Cornerstone Agrippa, Mimikyu, using all those wall Pokemon to make sure that your opponent cannot do damage to your board. So yeah, you're just trying to make a board state where you automatically wins. Like your opponent just cannot attack. So you're using Melodics to counter every single Terra Pokemon, Freegraph to counter all the basic EX, Mimikyu to counter all the Rubox Pokemons, and the Cornerstone to counter all the Pokemon with ability. Right? It's pretty well rounded. Like if you're facing up a deck that like there are some decks that can go through all this. For example, like all the one prider decks could find a way out. But for a lot of the meta decks, they cannot deal with melodics. So I'll put it in A tier. I'll put it I'll put it high A tier. I think it's very good. I think this deck is very annoying. Especially like especially against Dragapult and Terrorbox. I think this deck I wouldn't say automatically beats the top two decks in the S tier, but you have at least 80-20 matchup against these two. Moving on, Mamoswine. This is my new favorite deck. Like among all the new decks coming out from the Journey Together, Mamoswine is my new favorite. This deck is a beast when you set up. Like imagine like you have a giant stage 2 Mamoswine in the active with 340 HP and doing 340 damage every single turn. It's just crazy. Just too good. But like if you have the time to set up your board, you are unstoppable. Also, like I find it very easy to set up the entire board when you have your first Pidgeot and Mamoswine established, because your Mamoswine could just keep finding other Mamoswines, and they could just keep finding all the Pokemon, because the ability for Mamoswine lets you search your deck for any Pokemon, right? So once you set up a first Pidgeot and Mamoswine, you can just build your entire board up really quick, and then you become unstoppable. One of the biggest drawback of this deck is that it's very slow. It needs at least 2 turns to set it up. Even if you go second, like you probably need turn one, uh, build up your board, TM Evo, turn two, find the Mamoswine, and then build up a Pidgeot, and then you start swinging like turn three maybe. So like I would say it needs at least 2 turns to build up the Mamoswine most of the time. So try to buy yourself time, and I think in the next meta, actually Mamoswine is gonna be better because it's a Shermie comes out, which does the bench protection. Like in this meta, sometimes you get farmed by Terra Box, you get farmed by Ensorog, but in the next meta, when there's more bench protections, maybe Mamoswine would be better off. I don't know. Um, I think it's probably one of the best new decks. I think it's better than Asians, definitely better than Enso Rock. Because like when it gets set up, it could beat anything. It could beat. I've experienced beating Arcanodon, beating Dragapult, beating Terra Box, beating N-Stack. Yeah, I'll put it in low A tier. I'll put it down in low A tier. I know it's gonna be controversy. People will say it's not good, but my personal experience, like my deck testing tells me it's good. So I'm just gonna put it in here. Also like if you're playing your Mamoswine with Blaziken, you also have a way out against the wall deck. Roaring Moon. People know me. Like some people know me from my previous channel. Other people just know me in the logos. Like people who know me personally, like they all know like I was known for a huge Roaring Moon and Salamence fan. I've been playing Roaring Moon so much. I've been probably one of the few people who's gonna play Roaring Moon in every single meta. I've been playing it oh since it has been introduced. I played that with the Galarian Moltres, playing it with the Double Moon the Dunsparce, playing that with the Petra and the EX build. Playing that um with the basically like late Surging Spark, early Prismatic Evolution, like the Turbo Roaring Moon build. I'm playing every single version of Roaring Moon. I'm just a huge fan of Roaring Moon. But losing Dark Patch, like, kind of makes this deck, it kind of kills this deck, I would say. Like, you can still pull off Roaring Moons. Like, you can still do turn 1 Roaring Moon with, like, a Zeta or, like, a Genie's Secret Act with Energy Switch. But it'll be much harder comparing to the time we have Dark Patch, right? Because you're simply putting less energy in play. Also, we lose Radiant Greninja and Pokestop, which is all the turbo pieces we need for this Roaring Moon deck. Um, should I put it in C tier? Should I put it in D tier? I mean, yes, sometimes you can still build up a Roaring Moon turn one, and this still very terrifying for Roaring Moon when it gets set up. But the only problem is, can you do it? And my answer is very hard. Like you have to be very lucky. You need to have a lot of other pieces. Also, like we're losing Pokestop, and means we have to find another stadium. Like I'm basically now using Siphon Roll as the stadium in play, which I don't feel like very good. for Stadium. So I will put Voidmoon in high D tier. I still think it's better than other D tier decks, but I don't think it's as good as the C tier. Right? Okie dokie. Another one-player attacker. One-player attacker. That has been around since Shroud of Fable gets introduced. It's never too good. It's never too bad. In this meta, yeah, I'll put it in. I'll put it in C tier. I think it's okay. Yeah, I'll put it in C tier. I don't think it's too bad. Yeah, I don't think it's too bad because like there's a lot of like two-player attacks. Like there's a lot of like two-players decks in the meta where like if you play, depending on which ace spec you play, if you're playing the Legacy Energy, I think I'm pretty okay in the price trade. Yeah, I'll put it in C tier. Yeah, Miraidon. Miraidon also loses a whole bunch of pieces. It loses Rachel V, loses Raikou V, loses Forest Seal Storm. So like basically right now, Miraidon is just a Turbo Iron Hand deck. Like in theory, you can still play the new Tapu Koko as your second attacker, but yeah, Miraidon just losing too many attackers. I'll put it in C tier, like low C tier. I think it's still better off than Voidmoon and other D tier decks because you can still do turn one hand if you're lucky enough. Mm. But that's it. Like it's the turbo Iron Hand deck. It's not as good comparing to the previous meta. Like you just lose many attackers. The problem is if you can if you can try to attack with Pikachu, if you can find a way out, then probably okay. But if you're just using Miraidon hands, you always face a problem. How do you knock out the Dragapult, right? Because it's historically a huge problem for Miraidon decks, which is how do you deal with 300 or more HP Pokemon? The damage output from Miraidon is even more limited in this meta compared to the last one. Right? Terrapagos. You lose double turbo energy, so for now just using Glass Trumpet with the basic energy to build up Terrapagos. One of the good part of Terrapagos is like you can now play the tanky build. You can use the Bafflant. Is that the name of this? Is that the name of the Pokemon, which is the Stellar Crown one? The Bouffalant, which makes you take 60 less damage if you have two Bouffalant in play. So like every of your basic colorless Pokemon takes 60 less damage. You pair that up with Bravery Charm. Now you are taking 290 plus 50, 340 HP for this basic EX Pokemon, which is huge. I'll put it in high C tier. I'll put it in high C tier. I think it's like high C tier deck. Yeah, the problem is like losing DTE makes this deck a lot slower and makes it much harder to build up Terrapagos. So like you probably needs more time to build it up, but if you're playing the tanky build, you can be pretty tanky and pretty hard to dealt with when you when you really have everything you need, right? Yeah, like I think the tanky build of Terrapagos beats Terrorbox. I think it automatically beats Terrorbox. But for other stuff, you're basically two-shotting everything and everything's two-shotting you. Future Hands. Future Hands is another deck that sees a huge comeback. I think right now Future Hands is a better way to play Iron Hand deck. And I think it's not bad. Right? Because right now the meta is much slower comparing to the Prismatic Evolution or like the 13 Sparks meta. So for decks like for decks like Future Hands, it has more time to build it for yourself to build up your board and to build up your energy. And Iron Hand is always one of the best attacker in the format, right? One of the best. It's one of the because like any attacks that lets you take more prizes, it's always a huge advantage on your side. So you can just abuse the MP very much, turn up the turn with Iron Hands. So I'll put it in C here. Tyranitar. Tyranitar is another item lock deck. It says like once Tyranitar is in the active, your opponent's item locked. This idea is interesting because from Badu, I'll see how powerful item lock could be. But yeah, I don't think it's ever gonna be super competitive. But I think it's very interesting rogue deck. Like very interesting. Like if you want to torture your opponents, if you like the idea of item lock for the entire game, try this out. But I don't think it's ever that competitive. I'll put it down low detail. Okay, now we came to Charizard. Charizard definitely see falls off falls off. We definitely see Charizard finally flopped in this meta, like losing for the traditional Pidgeot losing the entire Forest Seal, Lumineon, Voltorb engine drastically hurts this deck. Like it makes your setup even harder. Also considering there's a lot of Purdue in the meta, still a lot of Purdue. The Pidgeys being becomes very hard to build up. Also, like there's another Turtles build, which we see people start to playing this. I think starting from the 2024 NAIC, sometimes around there, um, players like very famous Charizard player like William Vito. I think he played the Turtles in some tournaments. He's probably people say the king of Charizard, right? Like William Vito probably being the one who knows Charizard, one of the person who knows Charizard the best in the entire world. So like if he is playing like Turtles, it gives us a reason to think that Turtles might also be good, right? But ever since we never see Turtles doing too good, but it makes top 8 in the Japan's Champions League. It is the only Charizard that makes it to the elimination round. It's a Turtles. And a lot of people are saying the Turtles is a better build for Charizard in the new meta. I'm not quite sure. I think Turtles relies more on rare candy, isn't it? If that's the case, how do they deal with Purdue? Maybe they just knock out Purdue with, let's say, Fan Rotom, and when your opponents are not using Purdue anymore, then you just build up a Charizard, right? So, yeah, both of them, I think they're approximately the same in deck power. Pidgeysard is stronger when it gets set up, but Turtles is probably more consistent and has more options. So depending on which one you like. I think Pidgeysard, if you play Grand Tree as your ace spec and you play more stage 1 lines, you're better off against Purdue. But Turtles, I mean, of course, like you can do a lot of other stuff. Um, if you have multiple Noctowls set up in your turn too, right? So I'll put both of the Charizard in B tier. Um, I'll put both of the Charizards something like this. Both of them B tier. I think the Turtles is slightly better off in terms of consistency. If you don't hit the Purdue deck, I'll say. Um, yeah, because you need less pieces to pull up a Charizard. Right? Next, we have Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt still being the best turbo decks. I don't think you should play the. I know this idea of Ionos Belly Bolt, Raging Bolt, which is you just use Ionos Belly Bolt to charge up electric energy into play. But I don't think that's ever good because you don't have any draw engine. You don't have any answer to Iono to like hand disruptions. So you basically lose when you face a hand disruption in late games, right? So yeah, I think you should still stick to the traditional Teal Mask um, Raging Bolt build, and you can losing Pokestop, losing Radiant Greninja means now we probably need to play the Noctowl engine, and the Area Zero in our new Raging Bolt deck. Still one of the best. I'll put it S tier. I think it's the third best deck after Terra Box and Dragon Ball. Best turbo deck, super aggressive. You're still doing whatever you do before rotation. Um, Ironically speaking, I think the consistency of this deck becomes better when we drop the Pokestop and put in the Noctowl engine because Noctowl makes you find your status and makes you find other pieces you needed more consistently. That's my personal experience. I like the new build more than I like the Pokestop build. So in fact, like I was using the Noctowl build even before rotation. I was dropping the Pokestop. I was using the Ever Zero Noctowl build even before rotation. I think it's just better, more consistent, and also like it makes you less afraid of hand disruptions. Right? Last but not least, we have the Zacian build. Zacian, basically the hop station, mainly we have two strategies. One strategy is try to use the big attack, which is the Brave Slash, doing 240 with 3 metal and 1 colorless, and you just put in a Hop's Choice Band to remove the colorless requirements, and you just charge up your Zacian with 3 metal energy. The best way to do it, mainly two ways. One of them is using the Matan build, but the Matan, I don't think it is ever good because Matan is too inconsistent, right? It's just like electric generator. You first need to play at least like 15 to 16 metal energy for Matan to be able to consistently build up your Zacian. Also, like even that, like every Miraidon players, we all have experience like with energies with your electric generator, right? So I think it's not good. I think the better way to play if you're trying to abuse the Brave Slash attack is to play that with a Caledon. In this way, you can just build up your Zacian with Caledons, and you use other like damage modifiers like to boost up your energy. You play the Hops Snorlax, the Hops Stadium. I forgot what exactly the name is, but the stadium and the Hops Choice Band. Now you're doing 330 HP, which one shots everything in the meta except maybe only Mamoswine, right? So the strategy. I think this strategy is okay. I think it's at least the B tier deck. I think it is at least somewhere better than Slowking, maybe. There are two other builds, which is trying to use the first attack. It's 30 damage to the active, 30 to the bench. And you boost up your damage to the active by um, all those damage boosters I just talked about, Choice Band, Stadium, Snorlax. And one of the build is more aggressive one is to pair that up with Iron Valiant, and you use a lot of switch options. In this case, you're just doing a lot of poke damage with the Iron Valiant's ability, and then you use the first attack of Zacian as a spread attacker. This could be super aggressive in your early games. If you can find enough switch options. Like it could do board wipe, like going second turn one, right? But the problem with this build is like you have many two prices into play, which could be hard for your price trading because uh, if you're playing if you're playing a Zacian which focuses on your first attack, most of the time you don't have the ability to one shot the two prizes. Very hard for you to one shot the two prizes. So you need to you need a lot of turns to build up the damage. So in the late game, when the stage two deck sets up, or when just saying any other decks that set up their EXs and makes it harder for you to one shot, then you will probably lose on the price trade. So the Ion Valiant build of Zacian EX which focuses on um, like taking the lead and dominating the board in the early game and not let the opponent play the game. I will put it down in C tier. I think it is an okay idea to put to play. But it would depend on how fast your opponent could set up a comeback play. The other one is the Zacian with Monkey Dory. So like it just plays it plays only Dark Energy. For the Iron Venom build, it kind of plays only the Jet Energy. But for the Monkey Dory build, it plays only Dark Energy. Basically, Monkey Dory is a way to heal your Zacian and put some extra damage. And you use Zacian as a spread attacker. The idea of it is to use Zacian to take the first hit. So you just start off with attacking with Zacian, and then you build up a board with only one prize. So once the Zacian is knocked out, you left the entire board with only one prize. So now your opponent take two prizes, they have four prizes. Then you start attacking with your Hobbs Cramorant, which is 120 damage if your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prize cards. So you start attacking with a Cramorant. And most of the time your opponent cannot take 2 prizes because your entire board is 1 prize. So you can attack with your Hobbs Cramorant twice, then you lose 2 prizes. And the Cramorant could do 210 damage, which is very good numbers for the 1 prize. Then you are left with last 2 prizes. So like you attack with Zacian, then 2 hits with your Cramorant, and then you close out the entire game either with your Hobbs Snorlax, which does 140 damage for 3 energy, and you can attack with your Snorlax with only 2 energy if you put a Hobbs Choice Band, which does 230, which is a big number for this deck. Or you could close out the entire game with the Blood Moon Ursaluna. Because now your opponent takes 4 prizes, Ursaluna attacks with only 1 energy. So that's the idea of this deck. It's a spread attack deck. So like I mean like I tried this out. Like one of the drawbacks is that this deck lacks of big numbers of attacks, right? It lacks big damage. Like the maximum amount of damage you're doing is probably only 230, 240 max. Most of the time you're only doing 210 with Cramorant. So that's a problem for this deck. Also like you can increase the damage a little bit with your Monkey Dory, but yeah, you know what I mean. Like you're not doing crazy numbers, right? So I think this deck is also okay. I think it's probably the best way to play Zacian. Is it better than other meta decks? Probably not. I couldn't see Zacian being too good in the meta. I think it's relevant of a deck. If you like all the spread attack decks, Zacian is one of the choices because it like if you have the choice spell, Hobbs choice spell, you attack for free. That's the good part of this deck. The bad part of this deck is just lack of damage. And once your opponent sets up their board, it could be very hard for you to take big knockouts. So I'll put it in B tier. I'll put it here in a B tier deck. I think yeah, Zacian is probably worse than N and Mammal Swine in the new meta. Even though people say Zacian has everything it needed to be good, but I think one of the main reasons why Zacian is not as good as people think it is when it's first introduced is because the lack of a draw engine. That's one of the biggest problem for this rotation is that we lose a lot of draw engines. We're losing Refinement Curlier, losing B Barrel. So those are all good draw engines for a lot of decks that lacks draw cards, right? So Zacian probably needs to find another way to draw more cards to make it more consistent for this deck. Because right now, all of the build of this Zacian decks doesn't have a good draw engine, except like Serendipity, which is everything, which is the thing that everyone plays, right? So that's probably the reason why N is better than Zacian, because N has a draw engine built into it, right? And Zoroark could use this ability trait to keep drawing cards. So having more draws, like more draws in card games always means you're closer to winning, right? Sinning is winning. So that's why Zacian kind of flopped. That's another reason why I think Mammal Swine is better, because Mammal Swine in theory is a draw engine, right? You just senior cards, senior decks, right? So like if you take a look at all the S tier, A tier decks, most of them have some kind of a draw engine, like Dracloak for Dragapult, Mask for Mask and Noctowl for Terror Box and Raging Bolt, right? Goldingo has a draw engine built into it. So having reliable draw engine is very important in this meta, especially after rotation. So yeah, that's everything I have for this tier list. I make this video very long and very detailed because I wanna go over as much deck as possible. I want to go as detailed as possible into every single deck. Why I think they're good, why I think they're bad. Of course, I didn't include every single possible decks, right? I only include like 30, 35 decks. So leave a comments down below if you have disagreements with my tier list. You think some decks should be ranked higher, some of them should be lower, or if you think I should include some other decks into this tier list. Okay, I'm gonna probably do this once in a month or so. So I'm just probably updating that by the end of May when we go. By the end of April when we go into the May meta. Okay, so that's everything I have for the Journey Together tier list. Yeah, again, like if you like this video, please subscribe down below. It'll be greatly appreciated. And yeah, feel free to say hi to me if you meet me at locals and everything. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.